Welcome. Today we're going to talk about Parshas Terumah. So Terumah is about the Klei HaMishkan, and today I want to talk about the Aron and the Menorah. So the pasuk says that you make the Aron, you cover it with gold inside and outside, and you put on the cover, and there are kruvim on top of that. And then it says that you have to put in you should make golden rods with which you carry them, poles, and you put them, there were these rings on the side of the Aron, and the poles were put through them. The poles should be in the rings. Lo yasuru mimenu. You're never allowed to take these poles out of the rings. Now, the Shulchan also had carrying poles, and there was no din that you're not allowed to remove the poles from the rings. The Mizbeach had the carrying poles, the Menorah, different things, everything had carrying poles. The only one that you're not supposed to take the poles out of the rings is the Aron. So the Mefarshim want to know, why is it different? Why is the Aron different from the others? So I just want to make a suggestion that in Avodas Yom Kippurim, so the Aron stood in the Kodesh Kodashim, and Avodas Yom Kippurim, the Kohen used to bring a pan of Ketores, and used to go into the Kodesh Kodashim, and it used to be maktir the Ketores. He had the Ketores, and he had a pan of coals, and used to be maktir the Ketores in that pan, and it was placed between the Badei Aron. That's where it was supposed to be done. It was supposed to be done, the Aron stood in the Kodesh Kodashim, the Badim stuck out, and between the protrusion of the two Badim, that's where you did the Haktorah of the Ketores Lifnai Lifnim on Yom Kippur. So it comes out that the Badim, not only did they have a function of carrying the Aron, they also were a place. They were it was like a Mizbeach. It was a place where you made the Ketores. So if you would take the Aron, if you take the Badim out of the Aron, you'd be mevatel that makom. So that you're not supposed to do. But the other ones was only for carrying. So when you're carrying, you have min there. We're not carrying, you don't have min there. But the Badim of the Aron, they took on another role, that they were a makom, holy makom, and this was the makom in the Kodesh Kodashim, where you had Haktoras Lifnai Lifnim during the Avodas Yom Kippurim. So that's why you can't take it out. Okay, so let's move on. You put the Torah, you're supposed to put the Eidos is the Luchos, or the Torah, and you're supposed to put it in the Aron. You put it in the Aron. Now later it says the pasuk, you take the cover and you put it on top of the Aron. The Aron was open. You had three boxes: the gold, the wood, and the gold. You put the wood in the gold, and the gold in the wood, and then you put the kapyrus, the cover. You put it on top of it. And the Eidos, the Torah, you're supposed to put into the Aron. So Rashi says, Lo yadati lo menichval. Before it says already that you're supposed to put the Eidos in the Aron. So why over here does it say again? Sheikvar nemer v'nesatal Aron Eidos. V'yashloimer shebol lamed. Rashi says, coming to teach you that shebeoidoi Aron levadoi beloy kapyrus yitain. It's coming to tell you that you should put the Torah into the Aron before you put the cover on top of it. So the Chaim says, so what's the Havamina? That maybe you do it after you put the cover on top of it. How could you put the Torah on top of the Kapyrus? I mean, the Kruvim were there. They stood there like this. Where would you put it? There was no room to put it. So how could you have a havamina that you would put it on the kapairos on top after you put the kapairos on? So I think Rashi is saying something else. The kapairos was the cover of the aron. It was part of the aron. When you make the aron is an open box, and when you put the cover on it, that's when you have an aron. Before that, you don't have an aron. You have a half an aron. You have an open box without a cover. It's only a partial aron. So I would think that if you're going to put the edus, the Torah, into the aron, it should be an aron before you put the Torah into it. As long as you didn't put the cover on, it's not an aron. It's a partial aron. It's a work in progress. It's not an aron. So if you put it into it, you're not putting it into an aron. So first you're supposed to put the kapairos on it. That completes the production of the aron. Now we have an aron, and when you put it in, you lift the cover and you put it in. There was no havamina that you would put the Torah on top of the kruvim, on top of it. The question was, maybe first you put the cover on, that means the aron is complete, and once it's complete, then you open it up and you put the Torah in. So that's what the pasuk is telling you, no. First, you put the Torah in, and then you put the kapairos on. Even though you might think that before you put the kapairos there, it's not really an aron. That's what Rashi means. It doesn't mean that there's a possibility that you would put it on top of the kapairos. Okay, so let's move on to the Menorah. Oh. So Menorah says like this: Vosisa, you should make Menorah Zov Torah, a Menorah of pure gold, mixture made from one piece. Teyasa HaMenorah. The Menorah should be made. Should be made is reflexive. It's not you should make, it should be made. So Rashi explains what this means. Teyasa HaMenorah, me'eleh, from itself. It should be made. It doesn't say that you should make it. Why? Lefishaya Moshe miskashaba. Moshe was having a hard time making the Menorah. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Rebbeinu Shalom told him, Hashlech es hakikar la'or, take the chunk of gold and throw it into the fire. V'hinas es me'eleh, and it's going to come out on its own. You throw in the gold, and it'll come out of Menorah. Balpines, it'll come out of Menorah. L'kach le'nemer tasa, it doesn't say you should make it, because he couldn't do it. He was having a hard time. So therefore it says teyasa, it should happen on its own. There's another pasuk at the end of the Menorah, Urei Vasei b'tavnisam, you should make it according to the form, Asher atam mara bahar, that you have been shown on the mountain. What does that mean? Rashi says, Tavnis shani maroischa, Magid, it tells us, he was having a hard time with the Menorah. He showed him an image of a Menorah of fire. So, how did these two things go together? So the Sifsei Chachamim says that in the beginning he showed him the image. He's having a hard time. He showed him the Menorah. He still couldn't do it. So then he told him, throw the gold into the fire, it'll come out by itself. So there are two problems with this. First of all, it's out of order, because that means that the showing of the image came before telling him to throw it in the fire. And here it goes the other way. It starts right away, throw it in the fire, and then it says, Atavzish Tamar Bar. So it's out of sequence. But the other problem is a bigger problem. The Rebbeinu Shalom, he couldn't do it. So Rebbeinu Shalom showed him an image of a Menorah, and he still couldn't do it. The Rebbeinu Shalom understood that he's having a hard time, and showed him an image which would help him. The Rebbeinu Shalom thought that by showing him the image, he would be able to do it. And he still couldn't do it. So did he make a mistake? Chas v'sholem. Moshe said, I'm having a hard time, I can't do it. Okay, I'm going to show you a picture. Here's a picture of a menorah fire. Okay, this should help you. Now you'll be able to do it. And Moshe went, he says, I still can't do it. How could that be? How could that be? Okay, so now, here's another question. What does it say here? Vayasa menorah, it happened by itself. It doesn't say Tasa, you should make it, because he didn't. It happened by itself. But if you look in Parshas Vayakel, it says, Vayasa menorah, he made it. So it says that he actually did it. It doesn't say it happened by itself. Here it says Tiyasa, according to Rashi, it happened by itself. He threw the gold in the fire and it came out by itself. Me'elel, it happened by itself. Like Nichtav Tasa, it doesn't say you should make it because he couldn't. He was having a hard time. And here it says Vayasa menorah, that he made it. By the way, Vayasa menorah over here is this is really B'tzalel. Vayas B'tzalel es Aroy Natzei Shitim. He made the Oren, and then he made Vayas HaShulchan. He made the Shulchan. Vayas menorah. He made the menorah. So this was B'tzalel. But when it says that Moshe was having a hard time, B'tzalel and Eliyav, these were his team. These were people that worked for him. It was when it says that Moshe couldn't do it, it means Moshe and his entire team of craftsmen, of these brilliant craftsmen, none of them could do it. So it says Niskasha Moshe. It doesn't mean only him, because he wasn't doing the actual work. He was just supervising it. The actual work was being done by B'tzalel and Eliyav and other people, Kol Chacham Leif, whoever the other people that were doing it. Yeah. And that Niskasha Moshe means that Moshe couldn't do it. That means he couldn't. This whole team couldn't do it. Nobody could do it. Okay, so now let's just understand this. Moshe was Niskasha. Why couldn't he do it? Why couldn't he? What was so hard? The pasuk tells you should make geviyim and kaftorim and prochem, and there are instructions here how to do it. You know? I have over here Art Scroll Chumash, and there's a picture. Art Scroll figured out how to do it. Why couldn't Moshe figure out how to do it? What was so hard? And second of all, let's say it was so hard that Moshe couldn't figure it out, and B'tzalel and Eliyav, nobody could figure out how to make this menorah. Nobody could figure it out. But there's a mitzvah. The pasuk gave it, the Rebbe Shalom says, V'asisa menorah zav. There's a mitzvah to make a menorah. So this is an impossible mitzvah. The Rebbe Shalom gave a mitzvah. He should have known, the Rebbe Shalom, that nobody's going to be able to do it. So he gave him, and in the end, you're going to have to throw the gold in. It's going to happen by itself. And what's going to be with the mitzvah sisa? Nobody's being mekayim this mitzvah because it's impossible to be mekayim it, because nobody could figure out how to do this. It's too hard. So what kind of a mitzvah is this? Rebbe Shalom gave a mitzvah. He gave a mitzvah, and there was nobody was able to be mekayim the mitzvah. And the psukim tell you what to do. The psukim tell you what to do, but still, even though they tell you what to do, nobody was able to do it. So what kind of a mitzvah is this? So, and nobody had a hard time with the Oren, and nobody had a hard time with the Shulchan, and nobody had time with the Mizbeach. Nobody had a hard time, only with the Menorah. Why? So I think the pshat is really pashat. The Oren was a work of beautiful craftsmanship. There was a blueprint for it. The blueprint says, you take boards of wood, and you take this dimension, this long, this wide. You cover it in gold, you put it together, you do this, it's all there. The specs are there, you sit down, you just do it. Everybody who would do it will come out with the same product, right? But let's say I was told to make a painting of a garden. A garden, right? So I would make the painting, and I'm telling you right now, I'm not a good painter. It wouldn't be very good. You give it to somebody who's a good painter, it would be better. Give it to somebody who's a better painter, it would be better. It's the same thing. We have the same commission. Make a painting of a garden. So I do it, somebody else. Now let's say you showed me a painting of a garden that was done by Rembrandt. I don't know if Rembrandt did landscapes, I don't know. But assuming great landscape artist, that he did a painting of a garden and tell me, okay, do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. It's not something that I could do. Now, the reason why Moshe and his entire team had a hard time, because there was no problem making a menorah. You could make a menorah. But a menorah was not something, you can't have a blueprint for a menorah. It's not the Oren. It's not something that's just architectural, that's engineering, this is how you do it. The menorah is a painting. It's a work of art. It could be done 25 different ways, 1,000 different ways. So Moshe wanted, of course he could have done it, but he did it, he made it, and he wasn't satisfied. He wanted to make the menorah muhuder, not just like a garden like I would do, or somebody else. He wanted to make it gorgeous, beautiful. So he made the menorah. It's not good enough. So he was in the skasha. So he made another one. Still not good enough. He made another one. Still not good enough. He could have been mekayim the mitzvah of Asisa by following the instruction of the pasuk. You make gviyim, you make haftarim, you make flowers, and everything would be fine. You mekayim the mitzvah. But he didn't want to do that. He wanted to be mekayim the mitzvah mahudar. He wanted to do it zakeli v'anveyu, to do it on the highest level, artistically, to do it in a beautiful, beautiful way. And as much as he did it, as much as B'Tzalel did it, as much as Eliav did it, everybody, all his wonderful artists, and whatever came out, Moshe said, this is not good enough. It should be better. It should be better. It wasn't good enough. So the Rebbeinu Shalom said, here, I'll show you what a really, really divine menorah will look like. Something really which is beyond your abilities. You want to do tachlis ahidur? You want to do a menorah which is spitz mehuder? I'll show it to you. And he showed it to him. Now, this was something which is beyond anybody's ability to do. So he told him, throw the gold into the fire and it'll come out. Now, what does this mean? How do these two things work? So I have on my computer, on my desktop, I mean, all computers have this, you could put pictures on there. So you could put a picture of your kids, you could put a picture of flowers, you could put a picture, I have a seascape. I have, tide, I don't remember, I'm not even sure, something with the sea. So that's what I have. There are many, many different things you could do. Now, when I sat down to do this, so I decided, they show you all these different options, and I decided I'm going to take the seascape. So I clicked on the seascape, and my desktop became a seascape. So I made a seascape on my desktop. I didn't draw the seascape, but since I picked it and I clicked on it, so it means that I decided I made my desktop as a seascape. Now what if they wouldn't give me any options? You just click on it and something comes on. And I would just click on it, give me a background, and it will come out a seascape. Does that mean that I made a seascape? I didn't. I just clicked on it, whatever came. It's not something. You cannot say that I did that. You can only say I did that if I chose it, if I know what the seascape looks like, and I chose this. When there was a mitzvah of Asisa, how was he mekayim the mitzvah? When he threw the gold into the fire and it came out? That was the asiyah. Throwing the gold into the fire, that was the asiyah, and with that he was mekayim the mitzvah of Asisa. However, If when he threw the gold into the fire, he had no idea what's going to come out, then that would not be called an asiyah. I threw it out and the menorah came out. What does that menorah have to do with me? I didn't make that menorah. I threw gold in, the Rebbeinu Shalom made it. But if the Rebbeinu Shalom, since the Rebbeinu Shalom showed him what the menorah is, this is the menorah, this is the one that's going to satisfy you. This is the menorah with tachlis ahidur. This is the menorah. Now look at it. This is what you want. Make it. How do you make it? By pressing the button, by throwing the gold into the fire, and that menorah will come out. That is called that you made the menorah. And that's why Vayakel says, Vayas, you did make it. How did you make it? Because you were shown the menorah. And then you threw the gold into the fire, and that menorah came out. That's the way it was possible, the only way it was possible for you to make that menorah with tachlis ahidur. That's the only way it was possible. Maybe that's what menorah shel eish means. That menorah, which is like a glittering menorah, means from the highest level of aesthetic, of artistic creation. It was a menorah shel eish. It was the ultimate in the creation of a menorah. That's what he showed him. Look at it. Now you see that? Throw it in, press the button, and that will come out, and that's called that you made the menorah. You were mekayim the mitzvah vasisa, and that's why it says vayas. Thank you very much. I hope to see you again next week. Thank you.